Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune. And it's finally time to talk about my favorite band of all time, Marianas Trench, starting with their debut album, Fix Me. So yeah, I am well aware that most of you have never even heard of this Canadian band. Hell, the most some of you may have heard is their 2015 album Astoria, or maybe their breakout hit Pop 101. Well, trust me, we'll get to Astoria eventually, but first we need to go back to the very beginning. See, in the first place, Marianas Trench didn't start out in the pop rock scene, they actually started out in punk rock, where many would argue that they didn't really stand out. But in my opinion, the seeds of greatness were definitely there from the very beginning, with above average songwriting, a knack for incredibly catchy hooks, and some pretty impressive instrumentation. Plus, of course, you have Josh Ramsay, who I would still hold up as having one of the best voices in music today. Seriously, that guy can sing. So while this probably won't get the same views as my Kesha or Kendrick reviews, I still want to talk about this band that is very close to my heart. So let's dive in, track by track, starting with the lead-off single, Say Anything. So on the first song, the band proves right out the gate that they have real talent. A savage yet pain-filled performance from our frontman as he screams at this girl who broke his heart. Except that girl may actually represent a little bit more than you think, as this song is actually about depression and our protagonists struggle with it. Specifically, it's tackling therapy, talking about your emotions and not bottling them up, as they can boil over and become unmanageable, as they clearly do for our protagonist here. With the key line being, hurts the same when nobody knows, guess that's just how it goes, and I won't say anything at all. Add to that some pretty impressive riffing from our guitarist Matt Webb, some great percussion from Ian Castleman, and some great bass from Mike Ailey, who all aid that hook that just explodes out at you, not to mention a fantastic bridge, and you have one hell of an opener. Here we see traces of a sound that the band would go on to use a lot more, that being the wonderful, beautiful blending of multi-tracked and backing vocals. And boy does it sound amazing when it comes in on the back half of this song. And on top of that, the front half is pretty damn good too, with a great sing-song flow, and a much brighter piano-touched melody than the previous track. My only complaint is that it's a little short, not even reaching 3 minutes. But considering I know they would go on to expand on that musical idea, and considering just how amazing it sounds, I can't really complain all that much. Great song. Here we have yet another stellar melody with an unforgettable hook, but for the first time we see a big influence, namely in the verses where they go, turn it up, turn it up. That of course being The Police. And for me, this is on par with that time that Bruno Mars appropriated The Police when he did Locked Out of Heaven. It just sounds great. And lyrically, it's about how our protagonist prefers the rain of September to the sun, as it burns his skin and feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Basically, it's about how he feels more comfortable when he's miserable than when he's happy because it's so unfamiliar to him and he doesn't feel he deserves it. It's a tragic song and tackles a subject matter that I feel a lot of music about depression doesn't talk about often enough, that being whether the person who is suffering from depression even wants to be cured. Josh sells that complicated feeling on here really well, you can really feel his pain. And Ian in particular deserves props for the drum work here, it really is stellar. Yet another awesome song that serves as a great example of just how amazing this band can be. Continuing along the theme of depression, this album is about the brave faces we put on when depressed. to fool the world into thinking we're okay when in reality we're anything but. Now, I will say the hook doesn't really jump out at you in the same way it did on these last few songs, but to be fair, the hook isn't the focus here. The song has a really nice build to it, starting out with Josh Ramsay's quivering vocals and an acoustic guitar, but then it just builds and builds with the great drums, the slow crescendo of the guitars, and Josh's voice steadily becoming more and more desperate with some really nice string touches thrown in there, until he finally screams out about what am I, having hidden behind these brave faces for so long that he forgot who he really is. It's definitely a harrowing listen as he ends the song with the mournful phrase, "I'm half the man I wanted to be." Chilling.
Slap you like a bitch and you take her like a whore.
So after that last song about depression, here's a massive change in tone. You could almost accuse this song of being silly and jovial, especially with that hook, if it weren't for the utter disdain it was sung with. Basically, it's a song about how the record industry treats its artists, as just another piece till they need another sound. And yeah, for as ridiculous as this song can come across, it is catchy as hell, and it knows how silly it's being. Plus, this is a theme that they would go on to explore in great detail on their next album. In terms of their overall sound, this is an early sign of the fun pop stylings that they would become famous for, and I just can't get enough of it. Now, in all honesty, when I first heard this album, this was easily my least favorite song on the album. However, over the years I've listened to it so many times and it really has grown on me a lot. And a lot of that has to do with the chorus, where the backing vocals echo the feeling that our protagonist is going through. Now, with that said, I also wouldn't call it a real favorite of mine, as it does feel a little too mournful with no respite. Which is fine, but there are other examples of that done better later on this album. But before we get to that... In the vein of Decided to Break It, this is another song that feels a little ahead of its time, more something you would expect to hear on their next album. And as you'd expect, it's always been one of my favourites. The writing is really smart, the chorus is great, and the repeated riff after the chorus is really damn catchy, not to mention the great multi-tracking on the bridge. So yeah, it's a damn fun song, and there's a reason that their fans and the band themselves have remembered it over the years. So this is a song about how you never seem able to progress within life. Telling people you're alright when that's a lie, laughing to cover up your pain, and yet always ending up right back where you started no matter how hard you try. He even brings up how people call out to God in these moments, asking why they were put here, and yet rarely getting an answer. I know, it's kind of standard, but the band still does a great job here, delivering it with a great hook to boot. So as songs like this go, I wouldn't quite call it great, but it's still really good. You could definitely do worse. Okay, this is the only track on the album that I'm not really in love with. I mean, the drums are definitely potent, and the chorus is okay, but nothing all that special. And lyrically, it's about the excuses we make not to jump, to take chances, using the metaphor of vertigo to illustrate that fear. Honestly, it's a smart concept, I do like it, I just wish they'd done more with it, or maybe made a brighter song out of it. Again, far from bad, but they definitely have done better. This is the point of the album where our protagonist is faced with recovery and has the feeling that they're moving on to the next chapter of their life. It's supposed to be happy, the moment where he comes out of the dark. But here's the thing. This album about depression is actually based off of our frontman Josh Ramsey's experience with it. And in his story, his depression came from his anorexia. So in this song, he doesn't exactly recover. Just like in life, he trades in one form of misery for another, trading in anorexia for bulimia. This is by far one of the band's best songs and was the first real indication that they were more than just your average rock group. Because this is a song where Josh directly tackles his struggle with bulimia and just how damaging it is to his life. And God, these lyrics are chillingly descriptive. It starts with him locking himself in his bathroom and turning all the water on to drown the sound of his retching, followed by him begging for the mirror to just lie to him, which builds up to that heart-wrenching chorus, where he screams out that he's always down on his knees, both literally and figuratively, and yells out, "Thin, where the hell have you been?" And it's Josh's performance that really makes this song special. It's clear that this is so close to his heart. And then of course you have the pivotal line, "It's easier to quit, harder to admit," underlining once again that solving this problem has to start with him. After all, he can't get better till he actually wants to. Easily my favorite song on this album, phenomenal song. And that was Marianas Trench's debut album. And in my opinion, while it's not their best, it's still a great debut. It showcases a lot of this band's best traits, like their songwriting, their ability to create fantastic hooks, and of course Josh Ramsey's incredible voice. And while they would go on to create pop rock on their next album, their punk roots really do make sense now that we're looking back. And as a punk band, they were honestly pretty damn solid. Thankfully, I've never actually had to suffer through depression, but if I had an angry teenage phase, this would have definitely been the soundtrack to that. Damn great album, netting an easy 8 out of 10. Again, definitely not their best, but just like everything this band has released, it's still excellent. And for my next solo album review, we're going to be talking about their sophomore album, Masterpiece Theatre, and why it was such a big step up for the band. But until then, definitely check this out, leave a like if you enjoyed, please subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.